attention that society is having trouble understanding the basic concept of Max Headroom.
It's pretty simple, really. There's your hero, Edison Carter, TV reporter, his partner, Theora Jones. If you ask me, there's a little bit more than just news going on between them. Then there's Max Headroom, Carter's computer-generated alter ego. I mean, I created him, but I can't control him. A simple plot, a charming show.
Max Headroom right after Moonlighting, next.
In 1987, television audiences were introduced to a character unlike anything they had ever seen before. He wasn't human, he wasn't entirely artificial, he wasn't a robot, he wasn't an alien, he was something new. A sarcastic, stuttering, computer-generated television personality named Max Headroom. At the time he seemed bizarre, today he feels strangely familiar. In an era dominated by social media influencers, virtual celebrities, AI-generated content, digital avatars, and algorithm-driven media, Max Headroom no longer feels like science fiction. He feels like a prophecy, yet despite predicting many aspects of modern media culture, almost nobody talks about Max Headroom anymore. Today, we're taking a look back at one of the most fascinating and overlooked science fiction television series of the 1980s, a show that saw pieces of our digital future decades before most people even owned a computer. If you weren't around in the 1980s, it's difficult to explain just how strange Max Headroom seemed. The character appeared to be a computer-generated personality, a digital talking head, a synthetic television host, an electronic celebrity. The truth is even more interesting. Max wasn't actually computer-generated. The effect was created using makeup, prosthetics, lighting, and performance. Actor Matt Frewer played Max beneath layers of makeup and visual tricks. The result was a character that looked like what people in 1987 imagined a digital person would look like. At the time, audiences believed they were looking at the future. The irony is that today's AI-generated personalities often look far more realistic than anything Max Headroom ever did. The television series was set in the near future dystopia where television and media controlled almost everything. Corporations dominated society, television networks had enormous power, advertising influenced every aspect of life, ratings ruled the world. If that sounds familiar, there's a reason. Many of the show's ideas feel surprisingly modern. The story followed investigative reporter Edison Carter. After a serious accident, a digital copy of his personality was created. That copy became Max Headroom. In many ways, Max was one of the earliest examples of a digital human. That's a concept we're still trying to figure out today. One of the most remarkable things about Max Headroom is how accurately it predicted internet celebrity culture. Today we have influencers, streamers, virtual personalities, AI-generated creators, digital brand ambassadors. Entire careers are built around online visibility. People become famous without appearing on television. Some become famous without being entirely real. Max Headroom anticipated that shift. The character wasn't famous because of talent. He was famous because he was media. He was a product created, distributed, and consumed through technology. That sounds remarkably close to the modern creator economy. When Max Headroom aired, there was no Facebook, no Instagram, no TikTok, no YouTube, no Twitter. Most people received information from television, newspapers, radio. That's it. Yet the series imagined a society where media never stopped. Content was constant, advertising was everywhere, attention had become a commodity. Sound familiar? Today's digital world runs on attention. Companies compete for clicks. Creators compete for views. Algorithms compete for engagement. Max Headroom recognized this trend decades earlier. Younger viewers may not realize just how popular Max Headroom briefly became. For a period in the late 1980s, Max was everywhere. He appeared in commercials, he hosted television specials, he appeared on talk shows, he was featured in advertisements. Perhaps most famously, he became a spokesperson for Coca-Cola. It was an unusual moment in pop culture history. A fictional digital personality was being used to sell products in the real world. That might sound perfectly normal today. We regularly see influencers, streamers, virtual personalities, and internet celebrities promoting products online, but in 1987, it was a completely new idea. Max Headroom wasn't simply a television character, he was becoming a brand. Looking back, it's easy to see similarities with today's influencer culture. The technology was primitive, the concept was surprisingly modern. One of the smartest things about the show was its setting. The creator described it as being 20 minutes into the future. Not 200 years, not 1,000 years, just close enough to feel believable. That's why many of its predictions still work. The show wasn't trying to predict flying cars or moon colonies. It simply looked at existing trends and asked, what happens if this continues? That's often how the best science fiction works. In the world of Max Headroom, television isn't simply entertainment, it's infrastructure. It's government, it's business, it's culture. Network possession possesses enormous influence. Information is constantly monetized. Stories are shaped by ratings. Sound familiar? Today, clicks drive content decisions. Algorithms determine visibility. Engagement equals revenue. Attention equals power. The technology changed. The incentives did not. Perhaps the show's most impressive prediction was the idea of synthetic personalities. Think about what we have today. Virtual influencers, AI-generated hosts, digital avatars, voice cloning. Artificial personalities developed specifically for media consumption. Those ideas sit at the center of modern discussions about artificial intelligence. Max Headroom explored those concepts in the 1980s. That's remarkable. If Max Headroom wasn't already strange enough, the character became involved in one of the most famous broadcasting incidents in television history. In November of 1987, television viewers in Chicago witnessed something completely unexpected. During a WGN television broadcast, the signal was suddenly interrupted by a person wearing a Max Headroom mask. The interruption lasted only a short time, but a second and even more bizarre intrusion occurred later that evening during a PBS station broadcast. Once again, a figure dressed as Max Headroom appeared on screen, delivering a surreal and nonsensical performance. To this day, the identity of the person responsible remains unknown. No arrests were ever made. No definitive explanation was ever provided. The incident became one of the most famous unsolved broadcast signal intrusions in television history. What makes the story so fascinating is how perfectly it fits the themes of the show itself. Max Headroom was a series about media manipulation, information control, and the power of broadcasting. Then, in real life, someone used the character to hijack television broadcasts and disrupt programming. It's one of those rare moments where reality became stranger than the fiction it was imitating. And nearly 40 years later, people are still discussing it. Of course, the show didn't get everything right. Its version of the future looked very different from reality. The internet as we know it barely resembles the networked society depicted in the show. Technology evolved differently. Computers became smaller. Connectivity became universal. Smartphones replaced many of the systems the series imagined. But that's normal. Science fiction rarely predicts exact details. What matters is direction, and Max Headroom was often heading in the right direction. One reason Max Headroom disappeared from popular culture is that it arrived too early. Audiences in 1987 weren't living in an internet-connected world. Many of the show's themes felt abstract. Today, viewers immediately understand media manipulation, information overload, online fame, digital identity. Back then, those ideas seemed strange. Many viewers simply weren't ready for them. Although the series didn't become a massive ratings success, it developed a loyal following. Science fiction fans appreciated its intelligence. Technology enthusiasts appreciated its idea. Media critics appreciated its satire. Over time, Max Headroom became one of those shows people discover years later and wonder, why haven't I heard of this? The answer is timing. Sometimes a show predicts tomorrow too accurately. Watching the series today, I can't help thinking about artificial intelligence. Max isn't exactly AI, but he's close enough to make modern viewers uncomfortable. Today, we can clone voices, generate images, create digital avatars, build conversational AI systems. We're rapidly approaching the world that Max Headroom imagined. Not exactly, but close enough to be fascinating. If I had to identify the show's most accurate prediction, it wouldn't be technology, it would be attention. Max Headroom understood that attention would become our most valuable resource. Everything online today is a competition for clicks, views, engagement, watch time. The show recognized that media companies would increasingly compete for human attention. That's arguably its most accurate prediction. Looking back from today's perspective, several predictions made by Max Headroom stand out, not because they were perfectly accurate, but because they captured broader trends. The show anticipated corporate influence over media, information overload, the attention economy, influencer culture, digital personalities, constant advertising, content-driven businesses, media fragmentation. The details don't always match today's world. The internet developed differently, technology evolved differently, but the underlying ideas were remarkably close. Max Headroom understood that the future would be shaped not just by technology, it would be shaped by whoever controlled attention. And that's exactly the world we live in today. Revisiting Max Headroom in 2026 feels very different than watching it in 1987. Today we're surrounded by technologies that seemed impossible when the series originally aired. Artificial intelligence is generating content. Virtual personalities are interacting with audiences. Algorithms shape what we see. Digital media dominates daily life. Suddenly Max Headroom doesn't seem ridiculous. He seems ahead of his time. So why don't people talk about Max Headroom? Part of the problem is that it doesn't fit neatly into a category. It's science fiction. fiction, satire, media commentary, dystopian drama. It's harder to market than something like Terminator or Back to the Future. It asks questions instead of providing explosions, and unfortunately thoughtful science fiction often gets overlooked. Yet the DNA of Max Headroom can still be found everywhere, in influencer culture, in virtual personalities, in AI-generated content, and media criticism. It debates about technology and society. The show may be forgotten, its ideas are not. Max Headroom wasn't just a strange television character from the 1980s, he was a glimpse into questions we're still trying to answer. What happens when technology creates personalities? Who controls information? How much of our lives will be shaped by media? And what happens when attention becomes the most valuable currency in the world? Those questions remain surprisingly relevant nearly 40 years later. Maybe that's why Max Headroom deserves another look, not because he predicted the future perfectly, but because he understood where the world was heading, and in many ways we're finally catching up. So what do you think? Do you remember Max Headroom? Were the creators ahead of their time? Or was it simply one of the strangest television shows of the 1980s? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this look back at a forgotten piece of science fiction history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me next time as we explore more movies, television shows, and stories that time almost forgot. Until next time, keep looking toward the future. Sometimes it's hiding in the past.